Welcome everyone to our meeting of April 20th, 2026. I'll just have Madam CAO come in and join us, and we'll call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, that the meeting of the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry be hereby called to order.
Thank you. All in favor? Motion is carried. Moving on to the adoption of the agenda.
It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Bergeron, that Council approve the agenda.
Any question or comment? Go ahead, Councillor Gaindo.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you, you'd skipped over the declaration of the conflict. I just want to note that I have a conflict with respect to 6.4 due to a professional relationship with the applicant.
So we are, so the second is the adoption, and then the third will be the request for any disclosure. So, but it will be noted, I'll be asking this question to everybody in about 10 seconds. So any questions in regards to the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. Now I will ask, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest?
Sorry, Mr. Warden.
Go ahead.
Still 6.4 with respect to the professional relationship with the applicant.
Thank you. It is noted. Any other? Seeing none, moving on to the adoption of our minutes. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Fraser, seconded by Councillor Broad, that the minutes of the Council meetings, including the in-camera minutes of the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry, held March 16th and April 7th, 2026, be adopted as circulated, and that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meetings dated February 9th and April 7th, 2026, be adopted as circulated.
Thank you. Any questions in regards to our previous minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. So introducing our delegations, I would like to start with the St. Lawrence River Institute. I would like to welcome Dr. Jeff Riddell, Executive Director, and as well as Matt Wendell, the Program Leader for Research Technical Services. Welcome, gentlemen. It should be the one where the face with the little.
This one right
there.
There
you go.
Okay, there we go. Good morning, Mr. Warden, and good morning all. It's a pleasure to be here again. Our annual report to Council about the activities of the River Institute. And so we can go to the next slide. So I'll just start off by reminding Council that the River Institute is a nonprofit, non-governmental organization run by a volunteer board of directors, and of course the Counties Council was one of the founding partners to the River Institute with the City of Cornwall, Monks of Akwesasne, and community members, and we've been very fortunate over the years to have a representative on our board, and in this past few years, very fortunate to have a Representative Andrew Gaindo on our board, and we're really pleased, of course, for Andrew's contributions, and he leads our governance committee, which makes a lot of sense, and it's been a great thing to have access to. Next slide. We also have a really dynamic staff. Here's just a kind of a photo, pretty casual one taken at a recent last year event that we got together. We're running around 25 to 30 employees, and in fact it looks like we'll have a pretty good intake of summer students this year, so we'll probably hit the 35 to 40 range. It's a great collection of scientists, of course, technicians, but also science communicators, educators, and artists and photographers. So it's a really eclectic group and a very diverse group, and it's a real pleasure to work with these people every day. Next slide. So one of the biggest things that's happened at the Institute over the past year, and I would like to also thank Council for its contribution towards the construction of an addition at the Institute, a Center of Excellence here in SDG. And it just adds to the reputation of the Institute We'll talk a little bit about the science that's going to get done in that lab. That's what Matt will talk about. But we're pleased to announce that we're really in the very final stages. We're just waiting for that last sign-off from the city. And so construction has been completed. We're thrilled with the laboratories, and you will be getting invites for the official opening in end of May, and look forward to that. We hope that you'll be able to attend and join us and do a tour of those new labs. So it's been a really great project. The equipment we've waited for associated with the about $1.7 million construction, only 1,500 square feet, but very highly engineered, obviously, with very important like airflow systems and things like that. But also there's equipment that's been part of that, and we're going to have some state-of-the-art equipment to go along. It's exciting to see that the equipment start arriving. Packages have been arriving almost daily. It's just feel a little bit like Christmas last few days, last few weeks, and just to see this high-tech equipment coming in and create opportunities not only for the Institute and our research, but also for training opportunities and the students throughout the counties that we work with, both at the college, of course, with our environmental technician program, but also our education programs. And to be able to create a really interesting creative space is just a great thrill to be able to be part of that. Next slide. So it's a little just kind of some bullet points, just speaking to those comments that I just made. It's just, I like the idea, I love the idea of being able to Cornwall as a regional hub for science and innovation. And I'll pass it on to Matt. I think you get the next few slides talking about the research.
Thanks, Jeff. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Yeah, we're really just going to kind of cover some highlights from last year from some of our research and conservation projects. We've been working with the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne's Environment Program staff for the past 11 years on this really major project looking at the nearshore ecosystem health of the St. Lawrence River, and it's a really understudied area. Most of the biodiversity of the river is in this area, but there's just huge knowledge gaps that we don't know. So it's been a really great collaborative project. We've built this huge network of collaborators over about seven universities right now, and it's helped to drive a lot of the innovation that we've been able to accomplish at the River Institute as well, using new tools for monitoring like environmental DNA, where we can scoop up a little bit of water and look at the little bits of DNA floating in the water and then extract that and look at what species are present. We're also using new technologies like drones to have these overhead views of our habitats and map them out using different types of sensors. So that's really progressed over the last 11 years, and that's really helped lead to this construction of this new environmental DNA lab at the River Institute too, and the acquisition of these new types of equipment. And it's been a really great collaborative project with Queen's University as well. And through this project, we built this amazing, large, unique data set that is helping to drive a lot of conservation actions now throughout the river. So we've been able to identify certain types of shorelines that they're deficient, they might be missing vegetation, or they're just in really poor condition. And we've been able to partner with organizations like Watersheds Canada to go in and plant shrubs and trees and everything else that anchors the soils and rejuvenates those habitats. And so we've been able to restore a lot of habitat, and we've also been able to place structures in the water as well, substrates, things like that, to help various species of fish. We're also working with engineers from University of Ottawa and the Great River Network volunteer group and conservation authorities to address erosional issues that are happening along the St. Lawrence River. And we're excited to use a new approach using nature-based solutions. So this is projects that use natural materials like wood and rock to create structures and help address erosional issues that are happening along the river. And this could be from a variety of causes like ship wakes, weather, water level management, land use management. But we have two pilot projects right now that we started that were constructed last year. You can see some photos here of large trees being lowered into the water that are anchored. And those anchors also have these textured panels that are attached to them that enhance the habitat for fish. So we're monitoring how these structures are going to prevent erosion at two locations. And this is a long-term project, and we're really excited to share the results of this, and perhaps these techniques can be used by others moving forward to help address these issues. Non-point source nutrients are a really major issue in our watershed. That's, you can't really trace where the nutrients are coming from, but they make their way into our waterways. They can lead to excessive algal blooms and things like that, and poor water quality. And so there's a real need for tools from the conservation authorities and other managers to know where these hotspots of nutrients are. And it's such a huge watershed, it's hard to sort of pinpoint where these hotspots might be. And so we're using this new approach where we take samples of soil and we also use satellite imagery, and we can combine this to model and predict where nutrients might be across the watershed. And so it's a great project that's helping to provide a new tool for conservation authorities to sort of hone in on where the best locations might be for best management practices. And there's some interest from the provincial government as well moving forward to partner on this and help develop it a little bit further. So we're excited for that, those next steps as well. Switching to education, we have, it's one of our core mandates at the River Institute is provide these hands-on learning, experiential learning opportunities for young people throughout our community. And again, it's just one of the core things we do at the River Institute. And it helps to sort of educate people on the core technical skills and science methods, but also just provide it in a really fun way. Students get to experience and interact with actual research projects, and in many cases, that's inspired people to continue on their careers. And we actually have staff that started out through these programs that we now employ that are scientists that are doing the work. So it's really rewarding to see that. Last year, we did 95 hands-on workshops, and over 3,000 students participated in those from our communities, and working with over 100 different teachers. And that's in person at the River Institute, but they also bring these workshops to the classrooms at schools as well. One of the major educational things we do throughout the summer is these water festivals. So the Eastern Ontario Water Festivals, they're hosted at various locations, but they bring together hundreds of students from various schools. There's learning stations throughout the festival that students get to kind of rotate between and learn all about water, whether it's how hydro dams operate and generate electricity. It could be how a toilet works. All these different ways we use water, but it's a really fun thing, and again, it has helped inspire a lot of students, but it also involves a lot of high school volunteers, so we're kind of bridging in the gap between small, young students and also high school students to provide them opportunities to be educators. Our education programs also help provide opportunities for students to interact with our science staff and learn and build their technical skills. So whether it's how to use a microscope or how to identify different things, or even using art to communicate science, we're happy to do those types of experiences. So I'll just pass it back to Jeff now to talk about how we're working with communities.
Yeah, just to wrap up, last few slides here about our working with our partners and how that we're building this network throughout the St. Lawrence River, the upper St. Lawrence River. So next slide, Matt. Science and community engagement is a core mandate as well to the Institute. So our pillars are research, education, and community engagement. And so we've got a number of different programs and opportunities to engage community members. And so you can see it's pretty extensive, over 22 different workshops and restoration kind of involving community members involved over the past year. So next slide, Matt. One of our biggest, I think, most important projects is you're probably all familiar with the remedial action plan. And one of the biggest challenges, and it's been going on for 30 years, and we're making gradual progress towards that final completion of that cleanup program focused on the Cornwall, Messina, Akwesasne area of the river, Lake St. Francis. But what about the rest of the river? And that's always been the question, well, what happens after the RAP? And so we have been building as a strategy to what happens after the RAP, something called the St. Lawrence River Strategy, which engages people for the entire, from Kingston to Cornwall and beyond, Lancaster, and we've actually made partnerships across the river in that portion of Saint Zoutique, that community there. There's some great groups working in the Quebec sector. So they've involved now in this partnership that's gathering a momentum and steam, and with over 60 plus partner organizations that are interested in that, and that helps build to the future. And I think it's been a very strong program and positive in terms of the long-term vision. Next slide. We have a wide variety of kind of programs. We use a partner with Water Rangers, which has these great kits that can help get community members engaged in water testing in their local areas. So we've been doing that as one of our projects. The other one that we had this year, which was funded through Environment Canada, which was looking at river futures, which is sort of what does the future of the river look like? What does the climate change kind of scenarios look like? And how that might be affecting those things that we really cherish about the river? And what kind of decisions should we be making now for the future? And so that was a really great project, envisioning through using kind of an approach, templated approach, that actually was started with initially with a partnership with the University of Michigan, and they were looking at climate change, and they had created this template of how to kind of work with communities, and that started there, and then they got additional funding through Environment Canada, and we were able to hold those workshops and get that input and create a report that obviously goes out to all of our partners and involved, so they can have that information to start thinking about those river future issues. Next. The last thing I'll speak to, I think this is the second or third last slide, and it's just one of the things that's happened over the last, kind of organically over the last number of years, and it's the idea that if you're going to communicate science, not everyone speaks the jargon of the scientist or the engineer, right? How do you kind of bring the river to people in different ways? And part of that has been through the aspect of using art and different forms of art. This is just a little shot from we had a exhibition at the Klein House, which is here in Cornwall, an art gallery, and we brought different forms of art around the river and around kind of depicting science to the gallery, and it was just a really great way. We finished up with a workshop, like a panel discussion, and about what inspires people, and just a different way of bringing science and the river to people that I think is a way of engaging them in a different way. So we're happy to receive any questions. That's a snapshot of what we're up to. Very proud of this River Institute. I talked with Councillor MacDonald, who was on our board for a number of years, and he was saying, it's been a journey. I've been there for 31 years, and certainly retirement is looking in the near future, but it's been a great process, and to be part of this organization. Critical to me, as being someone who been there, is the support of council, to know that you can tell people, Counties Council is a founding partner of the Institute. It's been fundamental. It just carries weight that is hard to, it's not easy to sort of put into exactly words, but people know and they nod, and I really appreciate the support that we've had over the years and the time you've taken in providing with representatives who all been fantastic and create very, very beneficial to the Institute. So with that, we'll end there, and we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. I will take questions from the floor, starting with Councillor McGillis and then Councillor Broad.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and thank you for your report. I just was wondering, it sounds like you're prioritizing your restoration efforts in our more high-risk areas along the St. Lawrence River, and what areas are they along the St. Lawrence that you're concerned about?
Sure. Did you want to talk to that, or do you want me to?
So we have had from community members, that's where some of our information comes from for suggestions on where to target. One of our restoration areas is focused in Mariahtown, so just by Morrisburg. And then the other one is Point Mouillet, which is just a little bit downstream of Cornwall. Both are experiencing fairly severe erosional effects right now. So we've had a number of years where we partnered with engineers from the University of Ottawa, just to model the wave impacts and how much they're stirring up the sediments. And we're using that information now to install these structures that hopefully will help address some of that erosional issue. But we're always open to more suggestions on other areas. But a lot of that comes from our survey work, but also from community members that bring those concerns to us. And we try to create projects to help address that as well.
Yeah, I'll just point out that too, just to make sure that that's always done in discussion and collaboration with conservation authorities. So the Point Mouillet site, we went to Brendan at the Conservation Authority and said, what would be your number one site that you would want to see something? And that was Point Mouillet was what he mentioned. So we get that feedback from community and we're hearing it, but obviously that integration with conservation authorities are at the forefront of protecting that shoreline, and we make sure that we're speaking with them.
Do you want to add to that, Councillor McGillis?
And you mentioned climate change, and I'm thinking of fluctuation of the water levels, and how is that impacting our ecosystem right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a big question, right? And so what we're seeing, especially up above the dam the last couple of years, is higher than expected water levels. In fact, it impacted our project. So we know that water levels, what we're hearing with water levels is higher highs and lower lows. That's the number one, take home of what we're going to expect to see. So all of these types of projects, bringing about new technologies that can be done in an efficient and in a way that doesn't completely separate the river from the land, which is one of the key points. So you want to try and keep that connection, and that's where these natural-based solutions come from. So this is why we're involved in it, because we know that this is a core question. How do we address these higher highs and lower lows? And this really was a big learning point, was when we mapped out one of our projects in Mariatown, the water level was significantly higher than what was expected, so we had to make adaptations on the fly to the project to adapt for those higher water levels, and we're seeing higher water levels again this year.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Warden. Through you, thank you, Mr. Waddell and Dr. Riddell, for your presentation. Certainly a key piece of your work is community engagement. And just last Wednesday night, not only was Dr. Riddell at the Canadian Club presenting things that the St. Lawrence Institute does in South Dundas to a group of people, some of his team members were at the same time at the Iroquois Public School doing their event to school kids. So I can certainly echo, and I know they'll be at All About the River, so to stamp of approval on their community engagement is really important, and they're doing it. I see that daily in what they're doing. A follow-up comment on Councillor McGillis. Certainly for recreation in South Dundas, South Stormont, water level is a topic, and I know you've been involved with the group with Alt Island and Island 17 all the way through in all those high and low levels, which we appreciate you being involved to give your expertise and understanding. But my question is, I know you do engagement obviously with the school level and the kids. What type of engagement do you do with recreation, anglers or just boaters in general?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It was certainly a pleasure to be able to present at Canadian Club, and my gosh, they have a lot of great questions. So it was really a great experience. Yeah, I mean, obviously recreational, the recreational groups like the Stormont Yacht Club, the different marinas in this area, and as well the anglers. And the anglers are really probably one of the group that we work with the most. So through the remedial action plan, we often give presentations at their request, because they want to know what's going on with they want to know where the fish are, and we can't really, but they want to know what's going on with it. They're just interested, right? This is like, it's a no-brainer, really. They're really interested. They want to know about the fish populations, what's happening out there. One of the example of the way that we interacted with them is we heard from the community and from anglers. They wanted to know a lot about what they're seeing on the fish, like the parasites, the bumps and the lumps and things like that. So we created what we call the Funky Fish Book. This Funky Fish Book now is it's in its second or third printing. So we made Angler handy. You could put it in your tackle box to show what different little parasites that could be out there on the fish. And I've just heard now that they're actually going to use this Funky Fish Book at the Royal Ontario Museum as part of their training. So this has been just an example of the contributions that we're making in the feedback that we're providing to the community.
Thank you. I'll go over to Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. I seem to be here every time you guys come to give a delegation, which is really nice for me. I just wanted to say the Point Mouillet project, I did get to tour it, and it's where they've placed large trees anchored to protect the shoreline, this bioengineering stuff. as we were there, we could see this tree that, would have eroded and been fallen into the water, and a peregrine falcon landed on it as we were out there in the boat with all these funders from the feds. And it was just a spectacular moment of seeing the combination of the work that conservation authorities do, the work that the River Institute does, but also just the community coming together to actually protect something that matters to all of us. So it was a really amazing project, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to see it firsthand. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, well, I thank you very much, gentlemen. We appreciate all the behind-the-scene work that takes place, the scientific data, the research, and we're very pleased to have the St. Lawrence River Institute overseeing the environmental health of our St. Lawrence, and we look forward to the invite to visit the new venue once when you have your opening. So thank you very much. Moving on to our second delegation, I would like to welcome Melissa Morgan, General Manager of Human Services, and Lisa Smith, Manager of our Housing Services. Welcome, and nice to have you here this morning.
Thank you and good morning, Warden and Council. Pleasure to be here again with you all this morning. This morning, a bit of a different shift, although still housing. We'd like to speak about the end of mortgage and basically the second version of our end of mortgage phase. If you remember, a number of years ago, we brought to County Council a first phase or a first iteration of an end of mortgage, and at that time, it was largely based on, I would say, the ministry indicating to service managers at that time that they had no input or no recommendations for end of mortgage. Since that time, service managers across the province have been asking for input and recommendations from the province, and so the province has provided quite a number of recommendations. And so this presentation to you today is largely based on now input from the ministry on how they would like service managers to either continue to enter into negotiations for post-end of operating mortgages, or perhaps exit agreements with providers. And so Lisa is going to take you through that presentation this morning.
Good morning, Warden and Councillors. The slide you see before you essentially lists our existing community housing providers and where they are in terms of their end of operating agreement or end of mortgage. Just to give you a bit of history, in 2000, the province devolved housing to the responsibility of the municipalities, and at the time, a service manager was designated to oversee the community housing system. And in our case, that went to the City of Cornwall to act as the service manager for both the city and the counties of SDG. So what you can see is that we have providers that are located within the city and also as well within individual townships. Because the direction from the ministry has been an ongoing process, it's taken some time to get our own policies, procedures, and funding model in place to be able to present this to you today so that we can actually begin negotiations with providers. So what you're seeing is the rounds essentially let you know where we're anticipating to begin those conversations. So round one providers are a priority for us. Round twos are who we're going to move to later in the fall. And then you'll see there's actually some providers who signed off on our initial end of operating agreement that we created in 2020 when those agreements first started to end. I should also say too, when community housing was devolved, with it came what at the time was the local housing corporation. So Cornwall Area Housing Corporation was created as part of that devolution. And then these existing providers would have been under some sort of previous provincial or federal funding agreements at the time. So essentially they also came with those local housing corporation units. And at the time they came with very robust federally funded mortgages. Those are what are ending. Oh, there we go. Okay, so essentially, there's two options that a provider and a service manager can consider. There's the service agreement, which is basically re-entering into a funding agreement with some stipulations around how that will work. And then there's the exit agreement. So the exit agreement is when a provider would like to exit the system. What happens though when a provider would like to exit? There's pretty high expectations around what that means. So I will just advise everyone, as I did City Council, so legislatively, we have a shared responsibility to protect the tenants that are already in RGI units and to protect the stock. So even though exit agreement is an option, we have to consider how we're making sure that's actually still in place. So what this means is a provider has to be able to show financial viability to be able to continue to fund on their own RGI units, and also we put stipulations in place around the actual building itself in order to protect the stock, and I'll explain that to you later. What I should also explain to you is when the province gave direction to begin end of mortgage processes, they provided no sample agreements, no initial information, so we've had to self-create that through our own legal advisement. So it's very high-level guidelines, and that's intended to allow the service manager and the providers to have a negotiation process, but there also are some clear stipulations. So for example, when we enter into an agreement with a provider, if it's a service agreement, it's for 10 years. So there's an expectation of that relationship being made at a minimum for 10 years. And then there's also an expectation for a financial plan to be in place for 5. And I'll explain more of that later. Thank you, Melissa. So the service agreement framework establishes minimum requirements for, and this is coming right out of the Housing Services Act. So baseline provisions on how rent geared to income units would be funded. There's an expectation that units are still selected from the centralized wait list. There's a minimum length required of 10 years. There is a dispute resolution process that we have to put into place, and then there's ongoing participation in the Housing Services Corporation programs. So the housing services, or HSC, obligations have always been there, and what they've just done is said that will need to continue in the future should a provider continue in a service agreement. Next slide, please. Thank you. No. So legislated conditions of an exit agreement. So what ends up happening is that for a provider to even be able to consider exit is they have to have, again, I said, the financial viability to self-fund the RGI subsidy that essentially we as the service manager are provided. So essentially our funding obligation ends to that provider completely at the time of exit. So they're delisted from the system. There's no ongoing funding obligation. So essentially that relationship ends. And to be able to exit, there has to be agreement to continue operation as an independent provider, or that property can be transferred to another community housing provider. So for example, if maybe a provider in Winchester, for example, thank you, Melissa, would like to have another provider operate its services, that's what we're talking about, is that, for example, Beek Lindsay could say, we'd love to run the provider in Winchester, and we can set that relationship up. There's this other criteria here about redevelopment of the project for the use of the provider or another community housing provider. So that essentially means we're going to stop operating that site to be able to rebuild and operate a new site. And then there's this other criteria about if they'd like to sell the property and reinvest the proceeds into affordable housing. Both C and D require service manager involvement. So that doesn't just happen. So, for example, if someone wanted to sell their property to invest in the system, that means investing in the system operated by the service manager, not another kind of self-funded independent system. So how it happens if someone would like to, or a provider would like to enter into an exit agreement, there's actually a process for notice that has to be given to the ministry and the minister, and essentially the minister and the ministry have to sign off on the exit. They will not sign off on the exit if the service manager is not in agreement. So providers cannot exit unless there's service manager agreement. There has to be a documented plan for maintenance of the RGI units. So essentially the minister has to see proof that they can self-fund. It's quite possible an exit agreement could go into the ministry, and if they don't see this is in place, they could send it back and say it's not happening. There has to be clear plans for the ongoing operation as a housing provider, and quite the bullet point 2 and 3 are actually spelled out in some detail within the exit agreement template that we have drafted. And then there's also requirements we've put into place about how the property will be disposed of. So hypothetically, if a provider enters into an exit agreement, there could be millions of dollars of funding that was put into that building by the various levels of government. What we have put into the contract is that on any sale, that money has to be returned back to us as the service manager so that we can reinvest it. Our agreement also requires first right of refusal for the municipality to purchase, meaning if that property ever went up for sale, we would get the first opportunity to buy it. And we've also put into place guidelines around who can purchase. So for example, there was a affordable housing provider in the city who was sold to a private provider, and then subsequently there were issues with that where the units were lost, and eventually there were some other practices around renovation and evictions. By having guidelines for who can purchase helps us protect some of that. So essentially we're saying it should be another affordable housing provider or another not-for-profit charitable organization with a similar mandate. Because again, our intention is about protecting the RGI tenants and protecting the stock. It also details any repayments for subsidy for any outstanding COCHI or OFI investments. So we love acronyms in the housing sector. So COCHI is the Canada-Ontario Community Housing Initiative. So when you see C, think capital. So that's where we put any capital work into a building. In OFI, that's the Ontario Priorities Housing Initiative. P stands for program. So anywhere where there's been some program delivery funding or other things around rent supplements, that all has to be returned on exit. So some basically core assumptions we made when we went into looking at how would we roll this out within the region. We wanted to make sure that we were doing our best to adequately fund the system while keeping increases reasonable. We wanted both councils, city and counties, to have a projected sense of what that financial plan would look like. We've made a commitment to reduce the administrative burden on providers through simplified reporting, reconciliation, and budgeting. The reporting that providers have to do right now for the province is quite extensive, so we've looked at a simplified process to be able to meet our ongoing provincial requirements, but as well as for us as service managers. So we've really tried to make that easier for folks. We want the provider to have full budget control. So essentially what you're going to see, or what we would propose, is that they would have an amount that we would build through a model. If they're in agreement with that, then they'd know that is their funding amount for the next projected 5 years, and that they would also then have control over how they spend that by submitting to us a budget annually. So what happens now is the province gives very clear guidelines and stipulations on where funding can be spent. We want to help providers have more control over how they use and plan for their financial assets. Housing providers, we wanted them to still be able to have access to the emergency funding reserves that the city holds as operating capital reserves. So we do hold a couple reserves at the city that have come through things like when there's a surplus, we claw back a portion of that currently from a provider that goes into a reserve. If you stay within the system, we'll still make that funding available to you should anything happen where you have an emergency. So those providers would be able to continue continue to access that. Providers who exit the system no longer have access to that support. So, financial picture, high level of what this looks like. We did not provide a per provider cost because essentially that's confidential information to the provider, and we want to go through a conversation negotiation process based on those amounts. But what you can see is if you look at the green line is essentially what we would be projecting as the next 5 years of financial planning to be able to support providers. So the 1.893 million has already been approved through city and county councils through our budgeting processes, so that's already there. And what you can see is that in 2027 and 2028, we've tried to keep the increases quite reasonable. You'll see a slight increase happening in 2029 and 2030. While the percentages show 11% financially, when you look at the actual number, it's not as significant amount. It's just showing you that it's a shift. So what I mean by that is if you look at 2028, it's 426,000, and then in 2029 it's increasing to 474. So realistically, it's about like 50,000 of the increase that we would see, but when you compare it to the budget, it's an 11% increase. So the other portion we've broken out for you to be able to see is that using our current shared services agreement ratio of 20.72%, you can see what the county portion would be for the next 5 years to be able to support a model like this. So other key financial details of how we arrived at these amounts and planned. So we started with a base assumption that we needed to be able to continue the RGI subsidy amounts, and the property taxes were key components. We kind of use that as, at the end of the day, let's make sure we've at least got those covered for providers. And then we also used historical-based rent benchmarks. So what ends up happening is the province sends us formulas and calculations and numbers about benchmarking. So we use those as our base, again, to look at how we would increase costs. And then we also planned for a 2% rent control guideline increase. So currently the province has been holding its RCG to about 2%. So that increase happening year to year, again, allows providers that same increase to keep pace with cost of inflation and CPI. Operating costs, looking at our historical benchmark indices, increased at about 5% a year. So we've actually held that. So what you'll see is in the model, or what I can say, sorry, is in the model we planned for a 5% operating increase every year, and then additionally a 2% rent control guideline as well. Okay. When we did some quick math, it looks like on average providers across the board will see an increase in funding, with some providers, or on average providers, receiving about 40% of an increase in funding. So we know using this model that there's more funding available to the providers to be able to operate. And it should be noted that the increases are highest for the providers that have the highest amount of RGI units, which I think reflects the intention of both us as service manager and what the province would be expecting as well. The other things that we've included in the model is a base capital allocation amount. So one of the things that's legislatively required by the province as part of this is not only does there have to be a financial plan, there has to be a capital plan that shows how properties will be maintained. So we've planned for a capital amount for each provider, and then we've actually provided what we're calling a capital top-up, again based on RGI units. So the more RGI units you have, the more capital funding you get to support repair and ongoing maintenance. There will no longer be any surplus sharing with the service manager. So there's this system that was created at the time, as I said earlier, with the province, where we were expected to claw back funding. So say a provider has done a really effective job at, keeping base market rents, keeping pace, and they're showing some revenue, we have to claw that back currently. We will no longer be doing that. A housing provider, the only stipulation we have is that we want them to have no more than 20% of their total revenue as an accumulated surplus. So this doesn't mean that they can't have operating reserves and things like that. We're just saying when you're running an ongoing surplus, we don't want it to be any higher than 20%. And that's essentially benchmarking for charity and not-for-profit organization thresholds within the sector. Any balances over that threshold, again, will not be clawed back. What we would ask as part of the agreement is that they would be transferred into the capital reserve held by the housing provider. So again, this is what's helping to encourage capital planning and capital support. And just in terms of how we've been able to support some costing for this, the city and counties, there's been a plan to contribute to the rent regeneration reserve held by the city so that we can continue to add more community housing stock to be able to flow more money to providers. We've reduced that allocation for the first 3 years. So essentially the process for negotiation would be that we would start having meetings with the providers and begin the conversation around looking at the model and what's available, what could work for each provider, and then start to have a conversation around service level standard numbers, RGI units, and that kind of conversation. Our intention is that service level standards and RGI units would all remain status quo. But again, if there's a provider that maybe would like to operate less units, that's a conversation we could have. However, the service manager, would be obligated to take on those units. So what would happen is the provider most likely would potentially receive less funding. Same thing if there's a provider that would like to operate more RGI units, we'd look to see if there's a possibility to be able to do that as well. So I think it's important at this point just to advise, Melissa, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so before I move into talking about timelines, we did take this to City Council and we did present to them a series of recommendations, and I just want to make you all aware as County Council representatives what was approved by the city. So the city has agreed that we would move into, that they supported the model presented and the ideas and the assumptions behind it. They directed administration to proceed with service agreement negotiations with community housing providers based on what you've also seen yourselves this morning, and that they would direct administration to proceed with the philosophy of preserving existing housing supply by averting negotiation of exit agreements. So essentially, we would like to have exit agreement be an absolute last step, if at all. So we are going in with the philosophy that we're negotiating service agreements, not exit agreements. I think that's important as part of maybe questions you might have later to be aware of that. So approval of the model, our first step was we presented to City Council on April 23rd. We're here to present the same model to you this morning with your recommendation receive the report presented to you this morning. Once we have both of those meetings done, we will start to move into booking meetings with providers, presenting models, having conversations, and beginning negotiations. It should be again noted we're focusing on round one first, and once we have round one providers done, we'll move on to round two. And then we have to renegotiate the agreements that were signed under the previous service agreements from 2020 that we created in good faith when there wasn't as much clarity from the province. Some things that we've done that will be provided to providers is we have developed a procedural document to outline reporting and organizational stability requirements from a financial, administrative, and governance perspective. So we've got some guidelines on what we're looking for from providers as we move forward in terms of financial reporting and how those boards operate. And then we're going to further define what it means to be a project in difficulty. So there is a provincial process for when a project is struggling, where a service manager can come in and assume operations. We want to make sure that's clear as well in terms of things that we're building going forward. Again, as I mentioned earlier, there was not a lot of material provided by the province, so we've also looked at and reviewed materials coming from the Ontario Not-for-Profit Housing Association, Housing Services Corporation, and other legal guidance to develop an orientation presentation for not-for-profit community housing boards, a manual on how to approach this, and then we too have now the 2 draft templates for both a service and an exit agreement. So all of that information will be what we're presenting to boards to begin those conversations. Melissa, anything you'd add?
Nope, just open for questions.
I think to grasp that whole thing, we could sit here all day, but I will look at the council for any questions, starting with Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Thanks for the presentation. Very very comprehensive for sure. And it sounds like it's been a bit of a process trying to get this straightened out with the province. And I do see what looks like some improvements in the model. However, I have a couple of questions and some concerns related to the fact that I was contacted, I think as was Councillor MacDonald, by one of, excuse me, one of SDG's housing providers. And I'm told that virtually all of the housing providers across SDG, so this is rural, are all eager to sign exit agreements. Now, this is of concern because, you know, I agree that it could possibly, you know, undermine the need for not only existing RGI units to keep on existing, but, you know, the establishment of new ones, because we all know that we need more affordable housing in rural SDG. So this is, I'm sure, a big concern for everybody around this table. And it just is a little bit mind-boggling to me that, you know, there is what appears to be fairly significant funding available to these housing providers, and yet, under the circumstances, they're considering turning their back on that funding to go solo. So there's got to be some reasons behind that, and I'm not sure what they are, but I don't know. I guess my question is have the housing providers been involved in the development of this model? Are they aware of some of the advantages that didn't exist before that exist now? And what is really at the core of what's going on here? Because we can't have all of our housing providers wanting to exit. I think that there's a real threat there. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Warden. So, a couple of things. They have not been involved in the development of the model because it's the service manager's discretion to build the model and then offer it through negotiation. So what will happen is we will go and we'll present the funding that's available. So to be fair, providers don't know what their potential allocation of funding could be. What I can say, though, is all providers would be getting an increase in some form. So I also think we haven't had an opportunity to have a conversation with providers about what the streamlined processes could be. I do think there's room for conversation and negotiation in terms of that, and for us to understand what those concerns are and see if there's something we can do through negotiation to resolve that. I would also say potentially there's maybe just some work to be done around understanding how it works in terms of the exit and how that actually gets approved by the ministry. So I think ultimately providers have to be able to self-fund units. We've had one provider that exited the system that could clearly prove they could do that. Based on the number of units some of the other providers hold, I think that's going to be a fundamental conversation of, is the self-funding even possible? And if it's not, then we can't ethically or legislatively allow that provider to exit the system, and the ministry would also expect that. But we've got to sit down and have that conversation and show, here's what we've got, let's have a conversation and look at what's going to maybe work or not.
Sorry, if I may, Mr. Warden, and I think I'll try and go back to that slide. You'll see from this very first slide, it has been a bit of a frustrating process, not only for us, but I would assume for providers as well. You see there are 6 providers at the very bottom of the list that we've already negotiated with, because at the time their operating agreements were coming to an end, the mortgage was ending, and with lack of clarity from the province, we created our own funding model, which was in essence at the time the same model that had been, just less paying providing the mortgage. Because we have clarity, we wanted to get this right the second time. And when I mean right, like really take the time to look at what other service providers are doing. Service managers across the province have already done extensive research. There's been a lot of information passed along the province. We wanted to make sure we got the model that was right for this area. And so as you can see, some of the providers that are on this list have been a year, possibly two, without or carrying over the previous model. They have still continued to be funded, but just funded as they previously were. And so we can anticipate that there are probably some providers who have been eagerly waiting for these conversations to happen and wanting to have conversations about what this looks like in the future for them. So, we appreciate their patience in letting us do our thing to get a model that is right for everybody involved.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Lang and then Councillor McDonald.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden, and through you. Appreciate the presentation. I read the presentation and went back through some of it again. Still didn't totally understand it. Still not sure I totally understand it, but I think I'm getting to the point where I see where we're going here. Little concerned with the comment that you do not want to negotiate exit agreements. I think I sense a lot of frustration, and I want to say I appreciate the delegation from the Lancaster being here today. Just a lot simpler for them to hear it firsthand rather than us having to try to relay that. But I sense some frustration, so I think just be careful how you go into these things. That you go into them as you know, we don't want to talk about exit. If that's what they want to talk about, you better start there and then say, well, this is, bring it around to how you'd like to try to entice them to stay. And I think that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to try to entice them to stay. But I'm kind of getting there, but I find it quite complicated to go through this and to kind of understand it. So I'm very happy that they're here. But just keep that negotiation process going, and try to you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, sorry, I did mention. I'll go to Councillor McDonald and then Councillor Broad.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Lang on all the points, and I think that was a fair point that Councillor Williams did. I do like that ultimately the ideal is to have like a legal and corporate entity, affordable commitment, like viable an account. Like the whole thing seems to be looking out for the people who we're looking out for, and I do share that the sentiment is that like listening and learning, I think, is paramount at this moment. Because maybe, with more information, we can make better decisions, and I think I would like that fly and honey is a nice analogy, so I just like to echo that sentiment too.
Thank you. So did Councillor Fraser and then Councillor Broad.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. And I always appreciate a presentation from you, from both of you. It's a learning exercise, and maybe not for all, but for me, it's somewhat challenging. There's always new information being provided. But I don't mean to be mean-spirited. The exit of mortgage and the challenges that I hear from across the floor here, is it just us, or is it across the province that are suffering these challenges, and can it be attributed to the lack of clarity from the province? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Warden. It is across the province. So Housing Services Corporation is the Ontario entity that oversees, on the base for the government side, the service managers, and we probably are further ahead than many other service managers at this time, or in a comparable pace. And when you look at, I believe I included it in the report, a detailed listing of when and where we received information from the province. So at one time, the province was not even going to allow exit agreements to be negotiated. So that was a major shift in planning that we had to consider. So again, as I mentioned earlier, there weren't preset templates, there weren't preset agreements. We've had to, as a service manager, figure a lot of that out on our own. And I think essentially the intention of the province was to allow some flexibility in negotiation. it's been interesting. So to have, and I know there's been maybe information coming through various channels like Ontario Not-for-Profit Association that hasn't always aligned maybe with direction from the province that we're getting. So that's also, I think, been a bit of an issue as well in terms of the rollout. When I look at how they rolled out the CWELC, the Childhood Early Learning Program, it was far smoother. This has been a little more kind of figured out as we go. And you'll see in the report that like some of the final direction didn't even come down to us until 2022, 2023. And you can see we had folks that were done at that point. So this is why we chose to do continuation letters where we continued to fund as much as we could based on status quo without the mortgage payment included to be able to help operators continue until we could determine what needed to be done or what we would like to present to providers as an option to begin conversation. So, here, actually, I'll throw it over to you.
Okay, thank you. And through you, Mr. Worden. Definitely, Lisa and I and our team are hearing exactly what you're hearing as well and appreciate everything that you have said. Certainly when negotiations happen, it's not just an automatic, you will stay, and therefore this is, it is truly a negotiation. They offer both, they will be offering both. This is the incentive to stay, and this is what would be required upon exit. Our intent, certainly, and especially through building this model, was trying to make the model financially attractive enough to want to get providers to stay because we are in the business of affordable housing. We don't want to lose units. We have a long-term development plan that requires us to add several hundred units over the next 10 years. So it's kind of defeatist for us to not try and work with providers to continue to have those units be part of our housing continuum. So certainly we think we've created a model that is going to be attractive for everybody to want to stay in.
Okay, I'll take Councillor Broad and then Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Warden. So you echoing everyone else's comments. Two questions right away. Since this is quite important topic, when could we get the next update, either at this table or at shared services update? I think it's really important that we get an update, and it could be negotiation camera, it could be depending on how the clerk wants to deliver the information. I think it's really important, the next step. And then when would you start to think about pivoting if exit agreements start to come into play?
I could start. So through you, Mr. Warden, certainly things like end of operating agreement are always part of the shared services report. So there is a standing item there. We can provide updates. We could provide updates either in camera at this level or in camera at the township county level if it's particular to a particular, or if you just want to have a conversation with us, we're also open to that as well. In terms of sort of the trend on agreements and things, I'll turn that over to Lisa.
So through you, Mr. Warden. I think we'd flag it pretty early. We had flagged it for when it was taking place with Roxborough at the time. There were discussions with county council, and so we could flag it if we think it's starting to become a concern. Again, I'd like to give us all time to have those conversations with providers before we assume that's going to be an issue. Because again, I think the comment brought up by both Councillor Lang and McDonald are fair that with better information, there might be different conversations.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation, and I'm glad to see that there are some changes to the model. On a go-forward basis, these units are super important to each municipality, and we've had some of the service providers reach out to us. I would like if the service providers would like us to be present during some of those negotiations, that I think a member of council from, say, in our North Glengarry should be part of those conversations. Just if it gives them some sort of comfort level to have one of us there. If they don't, we're good with that. But I think that we should be part of the conversation. As I said, these units are so important to each municipality, and I think we have some skin in the game taxpayer-wise. So I think that we should be a part of the conversation. Thank you.
Okay, so that's good. If I can just add one more comment. So In regards to service providers, so this is where the discussion has to take place. It's unfortunate that Councillor Densham was not here today because I think he would have taken, he would have had questions for the process. So there's the factor of we do need the RGIs, but at the same time we have to understand there's city aspect and rural aspect, and that was one of the concerns where you cannot have a city person that's allocated an RGI in rural that does not have a car, does not have, and they're sitting in a small rural town. Now all of a sudden, depending on the people in that facility to say, hey, I need to go do grocery, it just becomes where those discussions need to be had at who determines who qualifies and who best to qualify that than the actual service providers on site and not a provincial or that governing body. So those are the discussions I think that can be had. But with all that said, I would appreciate, as Councillor McDonald mentioned, each municipality. I don't sit on any of the boards, but members of council that do happen to sit maybe get a better understanding of where it really lies, and that's what we need to come together and work. But I fully support Councillor Williams. We do need that low-income housing in all of our communities, not just in the cities. So with that said, and seeing no further questions, thank you very much for the presentation. We're accepting the report. Madam CAO, do we have direction on where this will take us as far as council making any decisions moving forward?
Through you, Mr. Warden, we will continue to engage in conversations with the City of Cornwall and Melissa and Lisa. I think as meetings are planned in the future, I can work with them and we can determine if there needs to be something set up where part of the counties is part of those conversations.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa and Melissa, for your time. Moving on to our action request. So under financial services for 2025 reserve transaction, Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Lang, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry approve the 2025 reserve transactions for the following amounts. Corporate Services Reserve, minus $13,323. Economic Development Reserve, $388,500. Forestry Reserves, $84,441. GIS Reserve, $11,000. Library-Specific Donations Reserves, $480. Police Reserve, $13,474. Planning Reserve, $25,000. Transportation Equipment Reserve, $919,769. Transportation Winter Maintenance Reserve, minus $300,000. Transportation Bridge Reserve, $210,000. Transportation Project Reserve, $415,000. And that $81,068 be reallocated from the library surplus to the library reserve. Any remaining accumulated general surplus as at December 31st, 2025 will be allocated to the working reserve.
So did you want to take it from there, and then we'll go for questions from council. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Thank you, Warden. So I just wanted to briefly, I know I mentioned over the last few months that I'd bring a reserve estimate or balances to council. I thought this was a perfect opportunity with regards to the year-end reserve transactions. So I only have a couple of slides here. So part of the 2025 year-end reserve action request, this overview summarizes projected position at the end of 2026. Our reserves are organized into four main categories. We have stabilization reserves, operating reserves, capital reserves, and working reserve. So the stabilization reserves are intended to mitigate financial impacts that could significantly affect the county. The tax rate stabilization reserve helps offset the cost of shared services, particularly with the timing differences in budget approval processes with the City of Cornwall. The Winter Control Stabilization Reserve addresses severe weather events that may result in budgeted overruns. Current policy targets a balance of 10% of the winter operations budget. Road Stabilization Reserve is used to manage fluctuations in tender pricing, particularly related to the AC index. Overall, Stabilization Reserve represent a total of $2.5 million, or 13% of our total reserve based on the 2026 year-end estimates. We have operating reserves, which support both planned project and carryover projects from prior years. Examples of this include committing funding to regional incentives, planning initiatives such as DC study, growth studies, library equipment, furniture replacement, IT infrastructure, including equipment and server replacements. 2026 is a great example of how those reserves work well. We have committed $140,000 to replace the servers from the IT reserve, which helps mitigate any impacts to the tax rate. Operating reserves account for approximately $527,000 or 3% of total reserves. So the next would be capital reserves. These are designated for capital assets, primarily within transportation, including roads, bridges, equipment replacement, and the salt dome infrastructure replacement. We also have a bridge reserve, building reserve, which is maintained for the administration building, which is used to support major capital projects such as our roof, for example. We've used that reserve over the last few years to do roof replacement. And capital reserves currently represents approximately $8.2 million or 43% of overall total reserves. And lastly, the working reserve represents approximately $7.7 million or 41% of the total reserve balance. And this is meeting our policy target of 10% of our budgeted expenses. This reserve is intended to address unplanned expenses that cannot be accommodated within the operating budget or to mitigate any budgeted costs that would otherwise be difficult to support. For example, in 2025, we did use a working reserve to help fund the costs of the forest fire. So in 2026, our budgeted expenses, just as an example, are just over $78 million, and which would require $7.8 million in the working reserve. Right now, we are about 79,000 short. However, if you look at the overall reserves, our operating reserves, we are over that 10%. So at the end of 2026, we're estimating to have a balance of $18.96 million. So as required by the Municipal Act, a report must outline how any surplus or deficit will be treated. The typical approach is to transfer any surplus to or any deficit from the working reserve, with Council retaining the discretion over its future use. The action requests before you reserves are required to support the approved in-year and carryover projects that have been identified. And it also includes direction from the Library Board to reallocate $81,000 from the library surplus to the library building reserve to fund future capital projects.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Bryan.
Thank you, Warden, through you. Thank you, Rebecca, for information. Question and comment. When will we receive the audited 2025 budget? And during that audit, will your team be able to describe from this reserve transfer how much is carryover that will be spent this year from unfinished projects and actual surplus from 2025?
So currently our audit is still ongoing. They were here the last week of March. They've done all their preliminary data. They're working on all of their final tweaks. I can tell you that based on the year-end numbers, there is an $83,682 surplus unaudited that I'm estimating. Oh, my apologies, I didn't answer the second question. The auditors normally come in May to present their statements.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, so all in favor of the transaction, motion is carried. Moving on to transportation with a reduced setback at 14453 County Road 18. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor Lang, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry receive the following report for information, and that Council deny a minor variance for a reduced setback of 26 meters from the center line of 14453 County Road 18 to permit the demolition, reconstruction, and extension of an existing sunroom, and that Council approves a setback of 29 meters from the center line of 14453 County Road 18 to allow for the reconstruction of the existing sunroom in a like-for-like manner.
Thank you. So I will pass this on to Cameron, but as just for the record, so there is where this motion is not being supported by, so I just want council to be aware, and I'll let Cameron speak to that.
Yeah, thank you, Warden, and through you, good morning, council. So this is this report is just, as the Warden mentioned, recommending against sort of the reduced setback from the currently existing 29 meters to 26 meters. This is just about being consistent sort of with our bylaw. However, County Council does have the ability to issue minor variance or approve a minor variance. And so just looking for your thoughts. I'm more than happy to answer any questions about the reduced setback. The current house is 29 meters. They're looking to get 3 meters closer to the road. Typically, the setbacks are there to allow, make sure there's enough safe working area in behind the property line so that any errant vehicles aren't sort of going to be at risk of striking a building, while also allowing for some additional space to account for any kind of growth along the county road. So that's a little bit of background behind why the setback exists. And again, this is just about being consistent with our current bylaw. There are no exemptions in the bylaw for staff to permit this addition on the building.
Thank you. Before I go to questions, which lower tier municipality does the 18 fall on? Is that South Glengarry?
South Stormont.
South Stormont? Okay, thank you. So I'll go to questions from council, starting with Councillor Gaydon.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you, I just want to make a comment. Actually, I believe we should allow the minor variance. It's a very minimal ask, and I don't think it's going to have really impact on safety.
Thank you. Councillor St. Pierre.
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Warden, I would agree with that. When I look at the 3 meters, which is only 10 feet, I still think it allows 75 feet on the conversion. That should give you enough safe space in terms of equipment and access and whatnot. So I would support that councillor's comment as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Warden, I would also support it. I think there's a few trees that would stop the cars before it hits the house based on the picture provided. And I think it's similar to the one we had on the Ogre property. So glad to support it if that's what South Stormont wants.
Councillor McGillis.
Well, I guess I have to say the same thing. I agree with all the other councillors because, I mean, I'm the mayor of the municipality. So, and I talked to the people are over there that own the property. And we've actually allowed these types of minor variances in the past with more of a distance than it's less of a distance today. So I can't see a problem. Yep. So let's just continue what we're doing here and trying to make it work for everyone.
Thank you. Any other questions for the Councillor McDonald?
Just procedurally, so I don't vote the wrong way, just could you make sure we do that properly? Or explain to me just so I don't...
So seeing no other questions, I appreciate staff have to follow. We have a bylaw, so, but at the end of the day, we'll leave it to council, so we'll put it to a vote. All in favor? Sorry, did you?
Through you, Mr. Warden, I do have a motion to withdraw. If the original mover, Councillor Broad, if you want to put forward the motion to withdraw.
I so move.
Okay. It will require a seconder, and it reads that the motion to deny a minor variance for a reduced setback of 26 meters from the center line of 14453 County Road 18 to permit the demolition, reconstruction, and extension of an existing sunroom be withdrawn.
Seconded by Councillor MacDonald. Councillor number one on this side, yeah. And we had a mover, correct?
Yep.
Yep, okay. Now, all in favor of, against? Motion is carried.
And then I have a motion to approve the setback. It will require a mover and seconder and reads that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry receive the following report for information, and the Council approve a minor variance for a reduced setback of 26 meters from the center line of 14453 County Road 18 to permit the demolition, reconstruction, and extension of an existing sunroom.
That is moved by Councillor Guindon, seconded by Councillor Bergeron. And all in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you, Cameron. Moving on to planning for the 2026 intake SDG Counties Regional Incentive Program. So we will do 2 resolutions on this, as Councillor Guindon has advertised. So we will start with the first one, Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Fraser, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry approve a $4,139.25 increase to the 2026 SDG Counties Regional Incentive Program for a total budget allocation of $254,139.25, with the increase being funded from the Regional Incentives Program Reserve. And approve the grant awards recommended by SDG Counties Regional Incentive Program Approval Committee for the 2026 RIP intake as summarized in Table 1 of the Council report, excluding Muir's merchandise.
Thank you. I'll let Peter go over the details. Good morning.
Good morning, Council, and I'm pleased to introduce our Economic Development Officer, Kat Rendeck. Kat joins us from the City of Cornwall with extensive experience in basically running their medical recruitment program and working with their community improvement program and other corporate initiatives. So Kat will give just a summary of the Regional Incentives Program, and we also have Councillor Guindon and Councillor St. Pierre, who are members of the committee, and Councillor Densham as well, who's not here today.
Thank you, through you, Warden. Just to start to say, it's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the Regional Incentives Program Committee to present their recommendations for this year's intake. So in the report provided, you will see that we received 25 applications in this year's intake, which is the largest intake since the program started in 2018, which is really exciting to see in terms of business investment and uptake of the program. The total funding request in this year's intake with all the different projects was over to $520,000. So again, a really significant funding request, which made it for a challenging consideration by the committee, and really commend them on the work that they did. So in an effort to explain the process, staff provided all applications to the committee for consideration with a scorecard as a tool to really support their deliberation. In their meeting, the committee first reviewed all applications and considered, based on eligibility, the completeness of the application, and whether or not an applicant had previously received IRP funding within this term of council. So that was very clear to the committee. Based on those preliminary criteria, 7 applications were not advanced for further consideration. As a secondary phase of consideration, the committee then looked at those funding requests below $5,000, really in an effort to support those smaller applications of signage or building permit requests or design fees, smaller efforts that really could have a great impact for a business. And it was through consideration by the committee recommended that all of those smaller funding requests be recommended to County Council at their full funding request. So you'll see that summarized in Table 1. And as a third step of their consideration, and in an effort to support as many businesses across the whole region as possible, the committee did some calculations and decided to recommend that all remaining applications receive 70% of their funding request through County Council. And so those calculations have been presented in Table 1 for your consideration. It's really important staff feel it's important to acknowledge that applications were across the full region, and that in each township had 1 application per township at minimum. So we really did see uptake across the whole thing, and also within the recommendations from the committee, you're seeing representation across the whole region. You've been provided with a number of recommendations, and just at this time, staff would like to confirm that County Council has put aside $250,000 towards this year's intake, and that there are sufficient funds in the remaining reserve for that small supplementary amount of $4,139.25 to meet the full recommendations of Council. And with that, I turn to you, Warden and Council.
Thank you. So I'll take questions from Council, starting with Councillor St. Pierre.
Thank you, Warden. Not really a question. I think the report is self-explanatory along with the explanation you provided. I think on behalf of the two councillors and I, we want to recognize the effort pulling all the information together. 25 really good candidates. I believe they're all really good candidates. So I just want to recognize that and thank both of you and all the staff as well as the committee. It's funny how we've been doing this for this term of council. As you said, it's the most we've had, but I think this process was probably the easiest that we went through. So I think the committee members were very educated and had a good direction right up front. So I just want to recognize that and thank you. And I know we're $4,139.25 over. If all of our projects were like that, we'd be doing really well. So I just want to hopefully everybody else will support. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Williams.
Yeah, excuse me, I sit on a lot of these types of committees that are allocating community dollars, and I was kind of impressed with your approach, I have to say. It was quite fair, it seems to me, to, when you've got just a whole host of really good ones, picking and choosing is very difficult. So, spreading those dollars out, I think, is a very smart way of doing it. I don't really know where a lot of these businesses and things are. Like, do you, maybe that's not fair, do you have a breakdown of where they are from in the municipalities, please?
Through you, Warden. Yes, I do. So from the recommended list, we are looking at 2 recommended recipients from North Glengarry, 2 from South Glengarry, 4 from North Stormont, 4 from South Stormont, 5 from North Dundas, and 1 from South Dundas.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. So just seeing the influx of almost just shy of $2.2 million being brought in different project in our, I think it's a well worth program just to see that evolve in all our communities. So with that said, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor? Motion is carried. Boom. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
The second motion is moved by Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry approve the grant recommended by the SDG Counties Regional Incentive Program Approval Committee for Muir's merchandise.
Thank you. Go ahead. I didn't get the first name again.
Thank you, through your Warden. First name is Kat.
Kat?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Kat.
In an echo of the previous report in motion, so this would be just a further recommendation and inclusion of this as part of the total funding amount. Thank you.
So on that specific one, do we have any questions? So it's only in regards to Muir's merchandise, which is one off that Councillor Guindon removed himself from. So it's just one specific that was removed. For those, sorry, maybe I should have been clear on the first one. So it's one that Councillor Guindon did not want to participate in that vote for that particular one. So with that said, any questions or comments in regards to one specific? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. So, Councillor Guindon, you can join us back. So, you know what? We haven't been this long. We had the couple of delegations. How about if we take a 3-minute break and we'll reconvene in about 3 minutes. Item 7.1 in regards to centerline pavement marking tenders award. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry accept the joint tender from Provincial Road Markings Incorporated for centerline pavement markings at their unit prices totaling $565,175 plus net HST, and that Council approve the county's portion of the shared tender price totaling $522,992.50 plus net HST, and that the term of the tender with Provincial Road Markings Incorporated include an option to renew for up to 3 additional years, subject to mutual agreement and in accordance with the tender provisions, and that the Director of Transportation Services be authorized to sign all necessary documents to give effect to the contract.
Thank you. Good morning, Dana.
Good morning, Council. The centerline pavement marking tender is a joint tender with local municipal partners for the supply and installation of centerline pavement markings and is completed annually. The county portion of the tender is $537,200 inclusive of net HST and contingency, and is within the approved 2026 budget. This tender was previously structured as a 2-year contract, but has been adjusted to a 4-year structure to help secure longer-term pricing. This has resulted in a 6% cost reduction compared to the 2024 award. The tender is based on a 1-year agreement with up to 3 optional 1-year extensions, subject to mutual agreement and CPI adjustments. The pavement marking work ensures safe, visible roadway conditions and is a key part of our ongoing infrastructure upkeep. With that, staff are recommending award.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and through you. Thanks for the presentation. No problems at all with it. I just was curious when I was reading it. Do we do all our roads every year, or do we do a portion every year? I just wasn't sure, and I just thought I likely should know, but I thought I would ask.
Through you, Mr. Warden, all of our centerline markings are completed yearly. Our edge line is split up into a 2-year plan, so we'll try and accommodate half of the edge line 1 year, then we'll follow the second year with the other half.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. 2026 roadside weed spraying, Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Lang, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry accept the joint tender from Wagger and Corporate Weed Control Incorporated for treatment on municipal roadsides and guide rail at their price of $50,067.42 plus herbicide and net HST, and that Council approve the county's portion of the shared tender price totaling $24,257.42 plus herbicide and net HST, and that the Director of Transportation Services be authorized to sign all necessary documents to give effect to the contract.
Thank you, and good morning, Phil.
Good morning, members of council. This is an annual report for our operations specific to roadside weed spraying. This is a joint tender available with all local municipalities. All of them have expressed interest in participating in this year's tender, and the counties administer this program and also supervise any of the work that is completed in this spring. So the report is in front of you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor McGillis.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So those that don't wish to have their the side of the roads or their weeds sprayed, they can still put the sign up and ask for, to remove that problem?
Yes, that is correct. We do have that availability on our website. So there's an intake form that's available on the county website to identify where your property is, and we also have explanations on how to post that no spray signage as well.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the subsequent. Just to follow up on that, what's the percentage of the amount of people that ask for not their areas to be sprayed or their locations?
Generally, in a year, we have about 25 spots that are request no spray.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and through you. Yeah, more of a comment, and I noticed further down in the report that it breaks down the municipalities' portion of the tender, and I noticed North Glengarry is doing guardrails this year and it looks like a nominal amount to me. I'm just thinking it's something that maybe we'll talk about at South Glengarry. I've seen the summer students out there weed eating the guardrails and poison parsnip all around them, and I just wonder maybe that's something we should look at too. I'm happy to see it in there, so it just got my mind thinking about it.
Well, on that comment, I think if we look at both past resolution, this one and the ones in regard to line painting, we're all jumping on board, so this joint tendering is, I think, the way to go, and I think our residents really benefit from us getting together, and that's nice to see, and we should keep up that collaboration. So with that said, any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. Item 7.3 in regards to our disc mower purchase. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Broad, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry accept the tender from Colvoy Enterprises 2012 Limited for the procurement of 4 disc mowers at a total tendered price of $129,002.72 plus HST, and that the Manager of Operations be authorized to sign all necessary documents to give effect to the contract.
Thank you, and good morning, Trevor.
Good morning, Mr. Warden and Council. Here this morning with a report not regularly coming across this table. Normally a very routine equipment purchase for us here, but here this morning, just due to the possibility of needing reserve funds to complete the purchase, staff did increase the budgeted amount from the last time these units were purchased in 2023. However, missed the mark slightly on what current market conditions are for this equipment. We're happy with the model. We've used this model. This will be our 3rd time purchasing it, so we know it's a good model. We do use it for a 3-year period, and we're happy with it. I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. Thanks, Trevor. Moving on to our bylaw. Madam Clerk.
The Restricted Acts Bylaw Resolution is moved by Councillor Bergeron and seconded by Councillor McDonald that bylaw number 5528, being a bylaw to delegate Council's authority for restricted acts after nomination day, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Thank you. I think this is going around at the local level as well. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. Moving into our official plan amendment number 30 on 4th Line Road concession 10 on the Arcan Defense. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that bylaw number 5529, being a bylaw to adopt official plan amendment number 30 to the official plan of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Thank you. And good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Warden. This application is to remove a salvage yard district on County Road 23 on the border of North Glengarry and South Glengarry. The applicant wishes to do an indoor shooting range. County Council's approval is only related to the salvage yard, and the bylaw on the shooting range decision is up to the Council of South Glengarry. So this would just be to remove an old salvage yard that has been on the property for about 20 years, I think. So that's what the applicant is asking Council to go to rural, is more flexible.
All this documentation, and that's what you have to say?
Yeah.
So, I will go to take the question. Maybe you can answer that, Peter. So go ahead, Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and through you. Yes, I agree. The only lucky thing for Councillor McDonald and myself was we'd already read it when it came to our council, so I didn't have to read it a second time. But anyway, to me, I just want to speak in favor. It makes perfect sense. At this point, we are looking to change the salvage yard designation to rural, I believe, and the lands surrounding it are rural. So there's nothing really controversial about this. We'll see a little further when we get to the point of approving the indoor shooting range.
Any other questions? Councillor McGillis.
Thank you. The salvage yard must have a lot of ground contamination, so how are you addressing that?
So it would be through the local municipality. Ultimately, this wasn't like a full massive salvage yard. It was a smaller operation. And actually the township removed the zoning some time ago, so that someone wanted to do a full-on salvage yard, they'd have to go through the process again. So it's actually already zoned rural. It's just our official plan still would allow it. This would remove that from being able to be done in the future.
Any other question? Go ahead, Councillor Lane.
Thank you. Just to add something, there was an environmental assessment done of the property. The group that's coming forward has done that, and it doesn't look like they found anything significant. So I think it was pretty minor.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. I guess we'll keep Peter there as we move into the official plan number 32 with regards to part of lot 19, con 20, concession 1. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that bylaw number 5530, being a bylaw to adopt official plan amendment number 32 to the official plan of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you, Warden. So this is an amendment requested to expand the settlement boundary of Iroquois to facilitate a subdivision with about 210 units through Newell and Grant Brown Limited, the developers here in the audience today. One of the interesting things is that before we had to wait till the 5 or 10-year reviews, and then we'd have to kind of swap out lands. We'll add some here, takeaways from there. This is the first time through new legislation, the private developers can just go ahead and propose amendments. And with this new process, it's basically only been 2 or 3 months instead of a multi-year process. So the application is supported by the Council of South Dundas, and we're also pleased to support the amendment.
Thank you. Before I go to questions, I have one myself. So with regards to what the area of 13-something hectares, I believe, is, does it have to be supported by a full draft plan, or because they're applying, can they exceed what, say, the proposed draft plan would be for future growth, or is it limited to only what's being proposed by a draft plan approval?
Thank you for the question. And through the warden, there's a concept plan, and they have to show the property can be serviced. So it's right beside a future water sewer extension, has access to a county road. If they wish to have more details, they can still, or make some changes, they can still submit a draft plan that's slightly different. But they've demonstrated that the 210 and what they want to do can work on the property. So that's what they're required to do. They'll have to do all the full studies, though, for the subdivision still.
Thank you. Now I'll go to questions from council. Go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
I guess it's a question, comment, and then another would be 1 in favor, 2, just to clarify, no swap of land. So that's wonderful. That was a question I had. And I think on page number 219, where it should say Warden Landry, it says Mayor Laughlin. As much as I love to govern over the SDG lands, that's not my title unless I read it wrong. So just to housekeeping item there.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you looking for a response to outside of the wannabe mayor or Warden Landry?
No, I did get a head shake, just that there's no swap, so that was my because of change of plan.
Yes, and we can fix any typos in the bylaw before Warden Landry signs it as well.
Yes, and it's not in the bylaw, sorry, it's in the FOTAN report, so that just to make sure that they have it right. Yeah, it wasn't you. But again, I don't govern over it, so.
Any other question? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. And last, in regards to County Road 18, speed limit adjustment.
It's moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor McDonald. The bylaw number 5531, being a bylaw to revise the prescribed rate of speed for motor vehicles driven on certain county roads, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Thank you. Go ahead, Cameron.
Thank you, Warden. Hello again, Council. Through you. So this is a report to recommend the speed limit reduction for one section of County Road 18 in South Dundas, east of Williamsburg, and also the extension of a 60-kilometer-an-hour zone near the intersection of Books Hill Road and County Road 18. So what happens is county staff will often receive requests for review of posted speeds. We undertake that review in accordance with TAC standards, and we will provide a response to residents. In this one in particular, We did feel that the extension of the 60 zone was warranted. There's a school just to the west that's going to be now within that 60 zone. And then furthermore, the section of County Road 18 between the school and the east limit of Williamsburg is going to be reduced to 70 just because of the length of the road. It's recommended that when you don't have significant changes in posted speed that are less than a kilometer or 1,000 meters long. So reduction from 80 to 70 for about a kilometer, and an extension of the 60 zone in front of a school for about 400 meters. And this was at sort of the request for review of two residents that the county staff heard from. So I hope that was clear, or the report was clear. Yeah. Happy to answer any questions. This is the rest of the changes in the report in the bylaw would be administrative, but there's only really the one speed limit zone change. Yeah.
I will look at Councillor Broad.
Yeah, thank you, Warden, and thank you, Cameron, for bringing this to the table. Yeah, we support that. We wanted the lower speed limit with the school there, and there's a hill, Bouks Hill, which apparently is the highest point in South Dundas. So we will noted that that's important for us.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. Moving to our consent agenda, Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor MacDonald, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, that all items listed under the consent agenda section of the agenda be received for information purposes.
Thank you. Any questions or comment towards our consent agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. Moving to our boards and committee, starting with the Warden's report. So after our last regular council meeting, I attended the meeting with the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus. We actually approved the board of directors, and I'm happy to say that we have Councillor Williams sitting on the EORN board for I think it's a one-year term or two. Might be 27, but Karma will be sitting representing us with EORN. And also we had a meeting in regards to the AGM and got updates on both the cell gap as well as our broadband networking. So that was good. We discussed the changes that were being had with our CAs. And last is the impact and discussions that we had on Alto. And with regards to Alto, so the caucus did pass a resolution to formally oppose to the Alto project in its current form. So basically, the Wardens Caucus want to be clear that we recognize the importance of nation-building infrastructure. We support improved passenger rail and connectivity. However, our opposition is based on how this project is currently proposed and the cost to the impact of our region, municipalities, residents, businesses, and land. The concerns, which are few, is limited regional benefit, significant local impact, municipal cost, and service risk. A lot to do with these and dead-end roads, lack of detailed information and fulsome conversation. We've got role of our municipal leaders, and then the path forward. So in closing, our message is simple. So if this is a nation-building project, it must work for the whole nation, including rural and small urban Eastern Ontario. As we move forward, so there has already been discussions with the counties, and we're going to be in coordination with our collaboration with North Glengarry, which is where I think might be, and we'll keep council updated as we move along with it. So that is one. Then second, we did have, I was glad to see, I think most of us were at the OGRA. I'd like to thank the two ladies in front of me, Kim and Maureen, for taking care of a lot of stuff, and as well as staff that came up and helped during the conference. We appreciated the invitation at Queen's Park for breakfast, where we were received by Minister Quinn and MPP Sarrazin. And also, I'd like to appreciate everyone that was present for our committee of the whole meeting. So hopefully we did get directions for our administration to move on our tree planting program moving forward. And last, I just want to make a small mention. I think all the municipalities did receive it, but May 12th is our Ontario 7th Annual Provincial Day of Action on Litter. So I think most of our municipalities will have, there's a help tool on there that was put on our municipal website. Maybe counties can do the same, but just to have people look after litter and clean up our communities. The day is March 12th, 2026. With that said, I will move on to our next one, which is the Joint Liaison Committee. Maybe I'll get, I do sit. Maureen, did you want to maybe highlight on that?
Well, I could redirect it to Councillor Lang. So during this meeting for this year, the counties will be hosting these meetings, and we elected a chair of the committee, and the chair for 2026 is going to be Councillor Lang.
And our meeting is May 17th, if I'm not mistaken, coming up.
I did not have the minutes from the previous. Basically, we went through, I believe, the social housing was in discussions, but we'll bring back between you and myself, Councillor Lang, the report for our next joint meeting. Moving to the Library Board, Mr. Broad.
Yeah, thank you, Warden. Glad to talk about the library. We had a meeting in Ingleside last week, 2 weeks ago, and we reviewed our collection development policy. We talked about political elections policy. We also took the feedback on the Chrysler feasibility study. So there was a study went out to the community. So we received the feedback for the expansion of the Chrysler Library. And we also discussed the reopening of the Williamstown branch. We had to do some work within the branch and put some new carpet in. So glad to see the Williamstown branch in South Glengarry is reopened. We had our book club and we reviewed the questions on Broken Country. And this month, Warden, we're reading The Grace Year, and we'll review that at our next meeting in May. So,
thank you very much. Moving to the Police Service Board, Councillor McGillis or Lang. No
meeting. But there is on Friday. Some of us are going to a one-day conference in Prescott.
Thank you. Eastern Ontario Health Unit, Councillor Williams.
Okay, I can speak if you want. I was at the meeting and, excuse me. Anyway, I can go back to what we were talking about, and Councillor Williams was there, talking about the ticks, and Lyme disease prevention efforts are still underway, including tick dragging, education, and different things that, to find out, the amount of people that are actually getting in contact with Lyme disease. Lyme disease can be prevented with antibiotics if the tick has been attached less than 24 hours. So anybody that has any ticks within 24 hours, you're pretty well, if you go for antibiotics, you can recover really quickly from it. COVID's still around. Adult vaccines is still going year round. Vaccines with high risk with the booster will be until June. The last school board right now is being done with respect to the flu vaccine. And also, Councillor Williams talked about community kitchens. Anybody that's using any type of community kitchens is still allowed. It can be used in an approval location, like a church or something like that, if they make food, if they want to bring food to other places. So that's a good area, but a lot of people don't have the facilities at home to do it, so they can use other locations, which is safe. Another thing too is minor changes to the rabies. Now there's tests more often, and the province of Ontario do more tests than any other province because there has been a death from the rabies, and the results of that is 16 to 18% of bats carry rabies disease. So if you think you might have been bitten by a bat or whatever, Dr. Paul said that it's wise to go and get the shots anyway. So it's important. We talked a little bit more about the strategic plan, the implementation of that. So looking for more efficiencies by restructuring to get more value for the money as well. They're going to start using AI more because of other health units use AI, and it's been very successful so far. So I think that Eastern Ontario Health Unit is really interested in carrying on that program. I think that's about all I have for today for the health unit.
Thank you. Moving on to the Glen Store Dunn Lodge, either Councillor Broad or McDonald.
I'll take it, Warden, and through you, and thank you. Just a good meeting we had last month. I do want to, and I might not have said this before, but I want to thank the City of Cornwall for the change at the board level. Dennis Sabron and Elaine McDonald are now on the board and adding good contributions to the board, so we're quite happy with that. Lots of topics this month. We discussed recruiting. Good news on the recruiting of full-time workers. Most of the line items are full. We're only short a couple, which is really good news for the PSW and RPN side, so really good news at the full-time level. Still have some gaps at the part-time level to fill, but been closing that gap over the last 6 months. So from a staffing standpoint at the lodge, that's really good news. As Councillor Lang and I, over the last couple of years, know how that's been a big challenge. Ministry inspections, had ongoing inspections is a good topic. Only had 2 orders, minor issues, so nothing to report on the ministry side. This year's capital project, replacing all the call bell systems, so the residents' bells that they ring, so that's going to be updated. No outbreaks in the last month, and goals for 2026 is for the staff and the residents is to reduce the amount of falls. So they're really focusing on awareness, training, equipment, etc., for reducing the amount of falls residents may have at the home. So it was a really good meeting, and glad to hear of everything's going well at this point.
Perfect. Thank you. Moving on to St. Lawrence River Institute. I think we had a good, you did well with that presentation, Andrew. So going to the Raisin South Nations Source Water Protection Committee. Councillor Bergeron.
Yes, so we had a meeting on March 27th. We reviewed the annual report, which shows that source protection plan continues to be implemented as intended, and the municipal and provincial partners all remain in compliance, which is good. We discussed the provincial proposal to consolidate the conservation authorities, reducing the number from 36 to 9. That's better than they had previously said either 6 or 7. And we were part of the change in that Katarakwi is now joining Kingston. And so our conservation authorities are Mississippi Rideau, South Nation, and Raisin River were the 3 were consolidated. The day before the meeting, the conservation authorities received notice that the offices would remain the same and the staffing would remain the same. We're not quite sure what's going to happen with the drinking water source protection, only because none of the chairs across Ontario were reappointed this term. So there may be some changes where those committees will be amalgamated somewhat. Any people who are interested to become chairs now they have to apply through the Provincial Secretariat Appointments website. And that will be open for 10 days and we'll be notified when that starts. We also received an update on the proposed Alto high speed. That seems to be coming up quite often, the topic over here. From Quebec to Toronto. An open house was held in Bank League Hill on January 28th. It was attended by Source Water Protection staff, only because the corridor, which is not yet approved, it may go through vulnerable areas, and so the conservation authorities are keeping track of what route that they're going to take. That's it.
Just on a different note, is Ottawa Valley not part also of, is there not 4 conservation? So Ottawa Valley is with Raisin, South Nation, and am I correct on that, Councillor McDonald?
Mississippi Valley, Rideau Valley, South Nation, Raisin Region, 4. And I would put forward that the name Ottawa Valley is a good name versus the St. Lawrence Upper Region, whatever long title they gave it. So we'll see where that goes.
Thank you. Municipal Advisory, Mr. Councillor Fraser. Seeing none. Regional Incentive Program, again, we went through it this morning, so I don't think any updates is granted or necessary. Rural Education Committee, Councillor St. Pierre.
Yeah, we have a meeting scheduled for May 5th.
Thank you. Social Development Council, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. The Social Development Council has officially been absorbed into the Eastern Ontario Training Board. So, so the board that I sit on, by virtue of this county, is basically just dismantled, dismembered, whatever you want to call it. So, Kimberly, you can remove that line item, and it's one less committee for me.
Thank you. And last two, SDG Forest Working Group, Councillor Lang, seeing nothing, and Councillor Broad in regards to Border Mayors Alliance.
No meeting.
Thank you. Moving on to our key information, starting off with our operation staffing update. Trevor and Cameron will update us on that.
Good morning once again, Council. Here now to present a report in response to an inquiry from Council. Admittedly, as our department worked through some other challenges and changes in staffing, I believe we may have missed an interim reporting target. But at this point, where we stand now has given us a good opportunity to go back and look at our new staffing model. With the completion of 2 full years under our new model, we were able to compare those 2 first years against the 2 last previous years of the old model, if you will. Excuse me. And as Council will remember, that was approved in November of 2023. We completed the hires of 8 new full-time staff, and that was really as a equivalent of 5.2 full-time equivalents, because we had already been hiring temporary staff throughout the winter season. So when we approached Council for this approval, the real difference in the financials staff had presented was that there wouldn't be a great change to our maintenance and operating budgets, being that winter was already accounted for in this. And what was really highlighted and is shown in the table 1 in the report is kind of the 7 key activities where our labor is focused throughout the summer months, or spring, fall, everything not winter, if you will. Again, this table takes in all of our labor difference, averaged of the 2 years with the new staffing model and the 2 years of the previous staffing model. So that's what's highlighted in the difference in labor output versus the budget variance. And I just want to note that that budget variance is inclusive of everything for those activities. So fuel, equipment, everything, not just the labor side of things. So there is some note on the table just explaining those differences. What's excluded from that table and was also expressed to Council as a good benefit of this program would be operations' ability to assist on the capital works side of things. And there's no real direct comparison to the previous model because it wasn't there. It was so sporadic of anything we could do, but we do have that ability now. And what I can present back to Council is we're averaging approximately 2,000 hours of support to the capital works programs. So if Council will recall, on the last road tour, the Sandy Creek culvert that was changed on the west boundary of County Road 18 was completed entirely in-house at great cost savings versus having to tender that out. Additionally, the Winchester urbanization, which was done in advance of this year's paving program, was completed in-house, as well as just other miscellaneous small bridge repairs that we've been able to support Capital Works with, that very difficult type of work to tender out and get a scope for, which you would end up paying greatly for when we're just able to have the flexibility to, if and when we can get it done, we're able to be a little bit more flexible and acknowledge some good efficiencies there. So I guess the table 2 where I'd like to highlight is, although it was expressed as net neutral for winter months and wouldn't see a great increase for summer months, again, with our reporting format, Table 2 will show the actual variance in budget for all of our operations and maintenance activities. And that's where, on the global level, we want to confirm with council that we haven't had drastic budget increases as a result of these hirings. I will note one small typo on the table, and my apologies for that, is the 2025 budget variance should be a plus 1%, not a minus 1%. But the values underneath the table are correct. So over this 4-year period, we've seen a 9.9% increase in the operations and maintenance budget, or an average of 2.5% per year. Although we've been able to increase our staffing level 33%, going from 24 full-time staff to 32 full-time staff, as well as wages increasing in 24%. So all in all, we wanted to get back to council with some of those numbers. Anecdotally, as managers and supervisors, we believe this program has been very successful for our operations requirements, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you. I'll start off with Councillor Broad.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the report. Two things. One, nice to see improvement level of service and capturing what was done. What I do see is missing is potentially the savings of retraining. As the part-time staff, if they turned over, there might have been more retraining, the same staff year to year. Have we been able to keep that staff in place, and then less training, obviously, perhaps in this first full year of cycle?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess one of those kind of hard to quantify numbers, but absolutely, as staff would turn over, there is an increase there. The temporary staff that we were hiring throughout the winter previously, luckily we're a very dedicated staffing group that were coming back on the annual basis. So there was a little bit of that, but nothing to greatly quantify.
Go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
Yes, and thank you for this. I know that I was somewhat insistent on it, and I appreciate that it did come back. Like, just to set the situation up, we did have this amount of money that we weren't spending. We had a level of service we weren't matching because we didn't have, so that's where this all started, that decision. So I was expecting it actually to be less financially, I thought it would be worse financially. Not worse, but the expectation was to spend more money because it was there never being spent. So in fairness, I think this has worked very well, and especially when you consider the culvert savings and those items, because they are hard to quantify, but it does make a big difference. And I hadn't even thought about retention. I don't know, you probably, as an HR professional or somebody who's worked in that, know that it might be 1 year of salaries every time you lose somebody. It's a large amount to retrain somebody, and I didn't even think of that. So I think we're now spending the money. We're doing the services that we said we were going to do, which was the whole point of this. Glad to have the report back. I guess if ever we can quantify some of those bigger items in the future, maybe an info report. I'm not going to be insistent on that. I'm satisfied, and I thank you for this report.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we're only receiving key information, so thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to intersection improvement studies at various locations. Go ahead, Cameron.
Thank you, Warden. So if council recalls, back at I guess it was the January meeting held in February, there was some direction given to staff just to review some safety issues it was 5 key intersections throughout the counties. Those intersections were County Road 43 and 20, so both legs of that County Road 20, County Road 43 and 7, County Road 31 and 18, and County Road 2 and 15. While we were reviewing these intersections, staff also felt that it was worthwhile to include County Road 2 and County Road 14, just because County Road 2 is quite busy, and we wanted to see sort of if County Road 2 and 15 was busy, what County Road 2 and 14 also looked like as well. So as part of this review, staff needed to collect a little bit more information than what we currently have. Right now, our traffic counting program, we collect at a certain point along the county road. For this one, we needed to collect turning movement counts, and so what that means is staff went up, set up a pole camera, and manually counted every turning movement at that intersection over a few hours. And so that took a little bit of time, and it's why this report is maybe a month later than I would have liked to have brought it. Overall, the results show that the 6 intersections reviewed are functioning safely and currently don't meet warrants or justification for an all-way stop or traffic signals. The collision history is also relatively low, and with the exception of one intersection, is below sort of TAC guidelines for what you would consider sort of the average across Canada. But one thing when we're talking about collisions is it's important to differentiate between reducible and non-reducible collision types. So what that means is if you were to install traffic signals, would a certain collision type be prevented? And so certain movements like T-bone collisions would be preventable if you were to install traffic signals, whereas a rear end or a single vehicle motor collision would not be. So I wasn't going to go through all the tables because there's a lot of information presented there, but just in summary, so the intersections are functioning safely. We're currently not meeting warrants at those 6 intersections, and we'll continue to monitor specifically County Road 2 and 15 because that one is quite close to meeting warrants for the traffic signals. The other thing that I think staff should look at and would be my recommendation is that we evaluate the the auxiliary lane or the second lane through Ingleside and bring back a report just on whether or not this is meeting TAC standards. So happy to answer any questions. Council has them.
So we're talking globally throughout all these 5 or 6 intersections. Any questions for Mr. Harper? See, go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
I had brought it up at the previous meeting, so thank you for doing the work on it. And if that's what the numbers say, that's what the numbers say. So appreciate it.
One more point is at the AJK quarter, we have reached out to the commercial business in the northeast intersection. We don't feel sightlines are being obstructed. I know that was part of the conversation back in February. We do not feel sightlines are being obstructed, but we have asked them to sort of keep the vehicles within their property limits.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Broad.
Yeah, no, and I was also pushing to get the same report because I know 43 and 7 and 18 and 31 hot topics. Very interesting. I learned something as well from this report. Type of accident to the type of solution, right? So turning in front of a traffic light doesn't prevent that necessarily, where a rear end may or may not. So very interesting on knowing what the type of accident would be. And that's good information for me to share that with my residents as well. The type of solution needs to match the type of accident.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Cameron. Moving on to the SDG Municipal Summit 2026. Madam CEO.
Through you, Mr. Warden, I've put this in front of council to see if there's interest amongst county council to have another municipal summit day in SDG. Typically, we have held it in the North Stormont Place, I believe is the name of the location. It's a good day for networking. Each township sort of brings forward a project or something that they'd like to share with the rest of SDG. We will sometimes try and invite other individuals to come in to speak. It is a fairly busy time in the townships, and it will be really busy in the fall. So I think the timing is around this time frame, depending on council if they'd like to proceed. I think on another note, later in the fall, with the new term of council, there's usually also a day where we bring everybody together to kind of get everybody onboarded and familiar with SDG, so there's that opportunity as well. But I wanted to put this in front of county council. If there's interest, we're more than happy to coordinate a day.
Before I go to questions, I'll just add something which I've been having maybe with a few of you, of the councillors, a few discussions. This is a big day, not just for the elected official, but staff also participate with. And one aspect, there was a session at the OGRA in regards to AI, and it's getting more and more into the conversation. We had quite a lengthy discussion, I think, at the library board. It's something I think that to see how, and not just at this level, but it would go down to our municipal level, but to staff and the elected official at a summit, I would appreciate maybe somebody coming in and just giving us the benefits of how we can utilize, not about taking away jobs from which is one side. It's more what can be done to utilize at staff level that can engage and speed up the work. So that's something I'd like to get maybe Todd and Mike, along with our CAO, that would be somebody that we could bring in that had the expertise to give us. So that's one topic that I had in mind, but I'll take questions from the floor and timeline as well. So go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Warden. And just to your point is that I think these are important, and it's a good time for, we do see each other at conferences, but we don't get to liaise a lot of the time with staff, other people's staff, and I think it's really important. If I can make one suggestion, is that the last 3 have happened on beautiful Fridays. And this is true, just everybody starts losing interest, is to have it on a Thursday. I think Fridays is not a good day for everybody. Some people like to take off for the weekend, some staff take the afternoon off, so I just think that Thursdays is a better day. Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
So I did see that there were 4 thoughts there. The Thursday that is proposed, I believe there's an RRCA meeting, and there's 4 of us on that board. So that South Glengarry and South Stormont members. And additionally, if we're looking for a topic, I know typically we've focused on SDG, but I'd be interested in like Cornwall's thoughts on what a hub city looks like, if that was maybe something to be considered, because like naturally our near neighbors are South Stormont and South Glengarry, but that hub city idea, I'd be curious if they had any thoughts to how they could support the rest of us. Not necessarily has to be taken, but just a thought on that one.
Any other thoughts? Councillor Broad.
Yeah, just on your AI comment, Warden. 2 years ago at our Business Award Night Gala, we had 2 guest speakers from St. Lawrence College in Kingston come and talk about AI. Excellent information that they brought. That would be someone we could reach out to as well. They wouldn't fill up the whole day, but for an hour, they had some really good information on how you can make it connected your business, small business, large business. So I think there are professionals out there that do speak on it, so I think we could reach out, and that's just an idea to add on.
And on that note, I have staff, personal staff that do use it. So some are on board, other ones aren't too sure, but there's so many benefits that I personally didn't even know. Oh, you can do this. So it's just, I think, an overview, but to have kind of would be something I think that would be beneficial. But and your comment about 2 years ago, I'm sure a lot has evolved since then. So go ahead, Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and through you. Yeah, I'm not. Most of the dates, the Thursday there is something, but just something maybe we might want to keep in mind is. If we do it before the end of May, our CAO will be able to join us. She will be retiring at the end of May. I mean, maybe she would come back for a visit, but I don't know if we want to try to accommodate that. Some thoughts.
No, that well point, and I think Maureen will be the one that probably will get the ball rolling, and we can also incorporate Jamie that would also be attending, I'm sure, with South Glengarry. Councillor Fraser. I'll look down at our CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So if we were to look at, I'm hearing Thursdays are potentially the preference. So if we were to look at Thursdays in May, maybe we could just have an indication of what Thursdays do not work, and then I can reach out to the local CAOs and see if there's a date that works better for staff.
Thursday, May 7th, we have joint liaison, but maybe we could switch it to an earlier date if that's the date that everybody can go.
Thursday's pretty quick for everybody to put stuff together. I'm thinking about the townships.
So Thursday, May 28th is good.
The 28th? The 28th?
Right now, my Thursday is I have color on every Thursday in May.
Wednesday the 27th?
Are you a no for
Are you in June or May? So if we go to Wednesday, I'm 13th, 20th, 27th is, I'm open, of May. If we, like the 27th of May, would that work? I see Martin with a thumbs up. Let's see, who could not make the 27th of May, which would be a Wednesday? So we have Councillor Fraser. Let's try the 20th. Who's not, let's go with who can't make the 20th. Okay, so, yeah, so we've, and if we look at June, there's the 3rd, the 10th, the 17th of May. I did not, but I can. Oh, I'm available on those, but. I'm good with June the 10th. So the 3rd, the 17th. So let's go with who can't go on the 3rd of June. Tony, don't put your hand up. So is there any council meeting on the, which were, they did the 3rd. So the 3rd of June, is there any council meetings? Go ahead, Madam CEO.
Mr. Warden, we had kind of looked at dates initially, kind of keeping an eye on Fridays. So knowing that council might be available on consideration for other dates, rather than try and figure it all out here, why don't we take it offside and we'll try to. And then what I would ask is maybe if we go out with an ask to everybody about availability of dates, maybe if everybody could respond, everybody's pretty good to respond quickly, then we can pivot and pick another date if we have to.
Looks like all of county council goes June 3rd.
June 3rd? Okay. We'll plan for June 3rd.
Maybe still, so the 3rd looks like maybe still send out so people will have time to maybe review their agendas and just get confirmation of June 3rd. If not, then we'll have to elaborate on the email. Thank you. So also, sorry, Maureen, did you have, I see here you're speaking on both 11.3 and 11.4. So did you want to move into your administrative updates?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So just typically I provide a few items on my calendar from the previous month. Upcoming county council meetings are May 19th and June the 15th. Just want to highlight everybody to keep the date open for July the 10th for the Warden's golf tournament. And on the human resources update, I would like to say that I believe that we've had a lot of really good recent recruitments, and we are, I think everything is currently filled, other than maybe some of our summer student positions. So I just wanted to say I think all's good. I did send out an email on Friday to County Council following a conversation with Councillor Williams, but we've recruited for our coordinator in HR, also our fleet supervisor and an additional mechanic in the last few weeks, and we're already seeing the benefits of that. So that is fantastic.
No, and I can speak on our mechanic. I think we'll serve you very well. Did you want to speak?
What, for the golf tournament, just putting it in my calendar, is it a morning or afternoon? Morning?
I will just for that. So I'm meeting with Todd right after the meeting just to overlook at the poster or the email that's going to go out. So it is a morning. So there'll be breakfast served with shotgun start at 10. And then we do have lunch, barbecue lunch will be served as well. And it's going to be held in Upper Canada Golf Course. So the email should be coming out any day this week. Todd will get that out to all of council. Okay, sorry, so did you have anything else to add? You're good, Madam CAO? Thank you. So moving into a motion that was brought at last meeting, that was brought by Councillor Guindon. So Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Guindon, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, whereas housing affordability remains a critical issue in Ontario and across Canada, with the national average home sale price at approximately $675,000, making home ownership increasingly difficult for first-time home buyers. And whereas under the current Ontario land transfer tax regime, a first-time home buyer may receive a rebate of up to $4,000 toward provincial land transfer tax, which fully offsets the tax only on homes valued up to approximately $368,000. A level substantially below the current average home price. And whereas at a home purchase price of $675,000, the provincial land transfer tax before any rebate can exceed $8,000, meaning that even with the current maximum $4,000 rebate, first-time homebuyers must pay a significant tax burden at closing that undermines housing affordability. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry formally requests that the Province of Ontario consider amending the Land Transfer Tax Act to 1. Increase the value threshold at which the first-time homebuyer rebate fully offsets provincial land transfer tax to a level that reflects current housing market realities. For example, to no less than $675,000, aligning with the 2025 national average home price. And 2, increase the maximum rebate amount available to first-time homebuyers accordingly, such as to a minimum of $8,000 or a proportional figure tied to the new threshold, to meaningfully reduce upfront tax costs for first-time purchasers. Be it further resolved that such amendments be designed to enhance housing affordability and access to home ownership for first-time buyers in urban, suburban, and rural communities alike. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the local member of Provincial Parliament, local municipalities within SDG counties, the City of Cornwall, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario for consideration and advocacy.
Thank you. Any questions or comment? Go ahead, Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, through you. Has the province already done this? There was something announced, and I didn't follow it 100%, but I'm thinking it was along these lines. But
yeah, I believe it was the
HST
rebate has been removed, not only for first-time home buyers, I believe for any house under $1 million, if I'm not correct, up to, I'm not sure, maybe Councillor Guindon can add to this.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Warden, through you. So there's been discussions at both the provincial and the federal level to remove HST, but that's specific to when you're buying a brand new build, because HST is only applicable on new builds versus resale homes, whereas land transfer tax is available, is payable on resale homes, and most first-time home buyers, I think 2/3 of first-time home buyers are purchasing resale homes, so that HST reduction isn't really an advantage to people who need this sort of assistance the most. You know, in my opinion, one of the biggest barriers to young people being able to afford that home is that initial savings for the closing costs, which is the down payment, the legal fees, and the land transfer tax. So essentially what we're asking is that the rebate, the value at which it's set at, be raised to provide a bigger rebate, given that home values have increased substantially over the last few years, but that 368 value threshold has not changed in over a decade. So that's essentially the reason for the request, and I'm hoping if we get support here today that you guys can bring this back to your respective councils and kind of push this and see if we can get a little bit of momentum behind it.
That's a fair comment.
Yeah, I appreciate that update. I wasn't clear on that.
No, and that's a fair comment, because not thinking about the resale, which the HST doesn't come into, is that basically clearly said? Do we mention that aspect of in the motion? And if not, is it something we can just tweak to make them well aware that we understand the HST rebate? But secondly, to the second comment that you made in regards to high percentage of first home buyers are resales and not new homes, is that indicated in the motion?
I think it's fairly clear, but we could, add a line saying that, making it clear that the land transfer tax is applicable in all transactions throughout the province, and maybe that would help people recognize the importance of the motion and support it.
So I think that would be is council comfortable, just sign it, and then maybe that phrase can just be, I'm sure Councillor Guédon can just oversee to make sure that it clearly clarifies those second-hand home.
One last comment, if we're making a minor amendment to that portion of it, I would actually like to change the ending of the resolution so that we forward it to all Ontario municipalities versus just regionally, if everyone is supportive of that.
Perfect. So as the motion's read with possible is of a council in favor of the motion. Motion is carried. And from here, I believe we are going to be moving into a closed session. So, Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor MacDonald, seconded by Councillor MacDonald, that council proceed in camera pursuant to Section 239, 2K of the Municipal Act 2001, a position, plan, or procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on or behalf of the municipality or local board for a contract negotiation matter.
Thank you. All in favor? Motion's carried.
in open session.
Go ahead, Councillor Fraser.
Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Warden. I just wanted to, I was just expressing to Councillor Gaino my appreciation for his knowledge and skill set on that motion, and I think I speak on behalf of everyone. We all have varied skill sets, and what he brings to the table today was highlighted his skill set. So thank you, and thank you for your indulgence.
Well said, fair comment. So we're going to have all in favor? We're good. And then a motion for direction on close. Madam Clerk.
This is related to the Dundas Manor redevelopment project. It's moved by Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor MacDonald, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry authorize and delegate authority to the Chief Administrative Officer to execute and deliver the revised guarantee and postponement of claim agreement and any ancillary documents required on behalf of the municipality in support of rural healthcare innovations for the redevelopment of the Dundas Manor.
And all in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Now we move into our ratification bylaw.
It's moved by Councillor MacDonald, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, that bylaw number 5532, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Thank you. All in favor? Motion's carried. And our adjournment, please.
It's moved by Councillor Bergeron, seconded by Councillor Broad, that council adjourn to the call of the chair.
Thank you. All in favor? Motion is carried. Well, thank you very much. It went on, but I think we had a good session of council, and enjoy the rest of your week. And we will see you at our next meeting.